They terrified the galaxy until humans woke. The Silent Terror. The Vrexian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through fear itself. They were masters of psychological warfare, beings who understood terror at a level no other species could comprehend. Their ships appeared like shadows in the void, decorated with the symbols of 1,000 conquered worlds. When the Vrexians came to a planet, they did not simply invade. They broke the spirit of every living being before a single shot was fired. Commander Thane of the Korvathi Resistance stood in the observation deck of their hidden base, watching the distant stars. His people had been among the first to fall under Vrexian control 60 years ago. The Korvathi were a proud warrior race, standing nearly 8 feet tall with crystalline armor that grew naturally from their skin. They had fought countless wars and won them all. But against the Vrexians, their strength meant nothing. The Vrexians had a weapon that no armor could stop. They broadcasted fear directly into the minds of their enemies. It was not simple intimidation. The Vrexians could reach into the deepest parts of consciousness and amplify every nightmare, every terror, every moment of dread a being had ever experienced. Entire fleets would surrender without firing a shot, their crews reduced to trembling masses of primal fear. Beside Thane stood Dr. Mira Sols, a Velcrin scientist whose pale blue skin seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. The Velcrin were telepathic, capable of sensing emotions and thoughts. This gift had become a curse under Vrexian rule. They felt the fear of everyone around them, drowning in an ocean of terror. The scout ships returned, Mira said quietly. They found something in Sector 793. Thane turned to face her. What kind of something? A ship very old. It was drifting near the edge of the void beyond, where space becomes too dangerous for normal travel. The hull is intact and there are life signs inside, but they are faint. Whatever species built it has been in some kind of suspended animation for a very long time. Thane felt a flicker of hope, dangerous and sharp. Could they be warriors? Another species we could recruit to the resistance? Mira touched a control panel and a holographic image appeared between them. The ship was massive, cylindrical, with primitive but sturdy construction. Symbols marked its hull in a language their computers could not immediately translate. We do not know what they are, Mira admitted. But here is what concerns me. The ship left its home system approximately 500 years ago, according to the decay of its power core, long before the Vrexians began their conquest. Then they know nothing of what the galaxy has become. Thane said slowly. Nothing at all. They went to sleep in one reality and will wake in another. The question is whether we have the right to wake them. They will face the Vrexian Empire with no preparation, no understanding of what they are fighting. Thane looked at the hologram for a long moment. The resistance was losing. Every day more worlds fell silent, their populations broken by Vrexian terror. The few species that still fought were running out of options, out of hope, out of time. Bring the ship here, Thane ordered. We will wake them. If nothing else, they deserve to know what happened to the galaxy they left behind. 3 days later, the alien ship was secured in the largest hangar bay the Resistance base possessed. Engineers from a dozen different species worked carefully to access its systems. The technology was crude by modern standards, but it was built with impressive redundancy. Whoever designed this ship wanted to make absolutely certain it would complete its journey. Dr. Mira worked with the medical team, preparing for first contact. They had managed to translate some of the ship's database. The species called themselves humans. They had left a planet called Earth after some kind of environmental disaster. This ship, named Exodus Dawn, carried 50,000 humans in cryogenic suspension. Their biology is fascinating, Mira told Thane as they prepared for the awakening. They have no natural armor, no telepathic abilities, no particular physical advantages. They are fragile by most standards, but their brain structure is unusual. The sections that process fear and emotion are highly developed, but so are the areas responsible for creative thinking and problem-solving. Will they be able to withstand Vrexian psychological attacks? Thane asked. Mira hesitated. I cannot say. No species has been truly resistant. But there is something strange in their neural patterns. Humans seem to have a very complex relationship with fear. Their history files show they created entertainment based on frightening themselves deliberately. They told each other scary stories, watched frightening images for pleasure, and even paid to be terrified in controlled environments. Thane stared at her. They enjoyed being afraid? Not exactly. They enjoyed overcoming fear, facing it, surviving it, and proving to themselves they could endure. It is very unusual. The first cryopod was opened with great care. Inside was a human male, his features relaxed in artificial sleep. He appeared young, though age was difficult to judge across species. As the preservation gel drained away and warmth returned to his body, his eyes opened suddenly. Captain Michael Torres gasped, his lungs pulling in air for the first time in 5 centuries. Medical drones moved forward, but he pushed them away with surprising strength for someone who had just woken. His eyes, brown and sharp, scanned the room with military precision. "Report," he said, his voice rough. "Where are we? What is our status?" The translation device rendered his words into Galactic Standard. Thane stepped forward, trying to appear non-threatening despite his imposing size. "My name is Commander Thane. You are aboard a resistance base in what was once the Korvathi system. Your ship has been in space for 500 years. I regret to inform you that your destination colony was destroyed long ago. Earth itself is gone, consumed by the environmental collapse you were fleeing." Michael Torres sat up slowly, processing this information. Around the room, other cryopods were beginning to open. Men and women in various uniforms emerged, all showing the same sharp awareness despite centuries of sleep. "Gone," Torres repeated quietly. "All of it. Everyone we left behind. Yes, I am sorry. But there is more you need to know. The galaxy you departed no longer exists. An empire called the Vrexians controls nearly every inhabited system. They rule through fear, through psychological warfare that breaks the will of entire species. Those who resist are destroyed, not through violence but through terror so profound that death becomes preferable." A woman in a military uniform approached. She was shorter than Torres, with dark skin and eyes that held a calculating intelligence. "Commander Sarah Williams, Chief Tactical Officer. You said they use psychological warfare?" "Yes, they broadcast fear directly into minds. No species has found a way to resist effectively." Williams and Torres exchanged a look that Thane could not interpret. Torres turned back to face him. "Commander Thane, how many humans survived on this ship?" "Our scans show 48,000 still viable. We woke you first because you were identified as command personnel." Torres nodded slowly. "Then we need to wake the rest. We need to understand exactly what we are facing. And Commander, I need to know something. You found us drifting in space. You brought us here and woke us. Why?" Thane felt Mira's presence beside him, her telepathic senses reading the emotional undercurrents in the room. The humans were afraid. Of course they were. They had woken to find everything they knew destroyed. But underneath that fear was something else. Not resignation or despair, but a kind of cold determination. "Because we are desperate," Thane admitted. "Because every other option has failed. Because the Vrexians are winning, and soon there will be nothing left but their empire of fear. We woke you hoping that a species with no experience of Vrexian terror might offer a new perspective." Torres walked to the hangar window, looking out at the stars beyond. "You woke us hoping we could fight something that defeats entire civilizations through fear alone. That is a hell of a thing to wake up to. I understand if you wish to refuse. We can provide you with a ship, resources to find another world far from Vrexian space. You owe us nothing." "No," Williams said firmly. "We do not run. Not our style." Torres turned back from the window. "Commander Thane, I want to see everything. Every record of Vrexian attacks, every psychological profile, every tactic they have used. I want to understand how they operate." "Of course. But I must warn you. Simply watching the recordings can be traumatic. The Vrexians broadcast fear at levels that can break minds. We will risk it. Humanity has faced fear before. We have stared into the dark and decided to keep moving forward. Maybe that is what your galaxy needs right now. Not fearless warriors, because fearless is just stupid. What you need is people who are absolutely terrified but do the job anyway." Over the next 2 weeks, the humans studied everything the Resistance could provide. They watched recordings of Vrexian attacks, analyzed the psychological patterns, and examined the neuroscience behind the fear broadcasting. What surprised Thane was that the humans did not try to hide their reactions. They openly admitted they were frightened by what they saw. Dr. Mira spent considerable time with the human medical and psychological personnel. "Your people do not try to suppress their fear," she observed. "Every other species attempts to fight the emotion itself. Humans acknowledge it and then act despite it. A human psychologist named Dr. Chen explained, "Fear is a survival mechanism. It evolved to protect us. Trying to eliminate it entirely is counterproductive. Instead, we learn to feel the fear fully, understand what it is telling us, and then make rational decisions about how to respond. The Vrexians weaponize fear, but fear only controls you if you let it dictate your actions." Captain Torres called a meeting with both human command staff and resistance leaders. The room was crowded with representatives from a dozen species, all desperate for hope. "We have analyzed the Vrexian tactics," Torres began. "They are effective because they exploit a universal biological response. Every species experiences fear in roughly the same way. The Vrexians amplify that response until it becomes overwhelming. But their approach has weaknesses." "What weaknesses?" Thane asked. "We have searched for 3 centuries and found none." Commander Williams activated a holographic display. "They rely on predictable fear responses. They expect their victims to freeze, flee, or surrender. Those are natural reactions. But humans have a long history of doing unnatural things. We have trained ourselves to override instinct, to act contrary to our biological programming," Torres continued. "The Vrexians broadcast fear. That is their weapon. But they have made themselves dependent on it. They have not developed strong conventional military forces because they have never needed them. Their fleets are designed for intimidation, not actual combat. If we can fight through the fear, if we can operate while terrified, we can beat them. No species can fight while experiencing Vrexian fear levels," said General Corvin, a resistance military leader. "We have tried. Soldiers reduced to screaming madness cannot hold weapons or follow orders. Human soldiers can," Williams said quietly, "because we have been training for exactly that scenario for our entire history. Every human military in our past developed techniques to function under extreme psychological stress. We have drills, procedures, and mental frameworks specifically designed to keep us operational when every instinct screams at us to run." Dr. Chen added, "We also have something unique. Human culture has spent millennia creating stories about facing impossible fears. We tell children tales about monsters under the bed and teach them they can be brave. We create heroes who feel terror but act anyway. It is woven into how we think about ourselves. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite fear." Thane felt something he had not experienced in years. It was fragile and dangerous, but it was real. "Hope. What do you propose?" he asked. Torres smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. "We propose an experiment. We want to face a Vrexian patrol, a small one, something we can handle if this works. We will bring human soldiers and some of your people who volunteer. We will show you that fear can be endured and that the Vrexians can be beaten." The room erupted in debate. Some called it suicide. Others called it their last chance. Finally, Thane raised his hand for silence. "We will do it, not because I believe it will work, but because every other path leads to defeat. If humanity wants to show us how to fight while afraid, then we will watch and learn." 3 days later, a mixed force of human and alien soldiers prepared for combat. The humans had spent the time training with resistance fighters, teaching them breathing techniques, focus exercises, and what they called combat mindset protocols. It all seemed too simple to work against Vrexian power. The target was a Vrexian patrol consisting of 3 scout ships. They were investigating an abandoned mining facility, perfect for an ambush. As the combined force moved into position, every non-human soldier felt the familiar dread building. The Vrexians were near, and soon the fear would come. Captain Torres moved among the human soldiers, his voice calm. "Remember your training. Fear is information, not a command. Feel it, acknowledge it, and then do your job. We have been preparing for this our entire lives. Every scary story, every nightmare, every moment of dread was practice for right now. The Vrexians think fear is a weapon. We know it is just another obstacle. And humans are very, very good at getting past obstacles." The Vrexian ships landed at the mining facility. Their crews emerged, confident that their presence alone would prevent any resistance. They activated their fear broadcasting systems, and psychic terror washed over the area like a wave. Every alien soldier froze. The Korvathi warriors, despite their training, fell to their knees. The Velkrin telepaths screamed. Even Commander Thane, who had faced Vrexian fear before, found himself paralyzed, but the humans moved forward. They were afraid. Thane could see it in their faces, in the way their hands shook and sweat covered their skin. They were absolutely terrified, but they kept walking, kept aiming their weapons, kept following their training. It was the most impossible thing Thane had ever witnessed. The Vrexians realized something was wrong too late. They had never encountered a species that could function under their fear assault. Human soldiers opened fire with precise controlled bursts. The Vrexians, who had no real combat experience because they never needed it, fell quickly. Within minutes, it was over. 3 Vrexian ships captured, their crews neutralized, and standing in the center of it all were human soldiers who had just done the impossible. Commander Williams helped Thane to his feet as the fear broadcast ended. "Are you all right?" Thane stared at her. "You were afraid. I could see it." "How did you move?" "We were terrified," Williams admitted. "Fear does not stop being fear just because you understand it. But we decided a long time ago that being afraid was not a good enough reason to stop fighting. The Vrexians made fear their weapon. That was their mistake. Because humans have been afraid since we lived in caves and worried about predators in the dark. We are experts at being afraid. And we learned that the thing you fear most is rarely as strong as it seems once you face it directly." Thane looked around at his soldiers, who were slowly recovering. They had seen humans do what every species believed was impossible: fight through Vrexian fear and win. "Teach us," Thane said quietly. "Teach us how to be as brave as you are." Torres shook his head. "We are not brave, Commander. We are just stubborn. And maybe that is exactly what the galaxy needs right now. Not heroes who feel no fear, but people who are scared out of their minds and do the right thing anyway." Breaking the fear news of the human victory spread through the resistance network like wildfire. For 300 years, the galaxy had believed the Vrexians were unstoppable. Now there was proof that their fear weapon could be overcome. Resistance cells across 100 systems requested human advisors, desperate to learn these techniques. Captain Torres stood in the command center of the resistance base, now serving as a combined human and alien military headquarters. Around him, holographic displays showed Vrexian positions throughout the galaxy. Their empire stretched across thousands of systems, each one held through psychological domination rather than military force. "We have requests from 47 resistance groups," Commander Williams reported. "Everyone wants human trainers. We only have 15,000 military personnel, and half of those are engineers, pilots, and support staff. We cannot possibly meet the demand." Dr. Chen, who had been working with alien psychologists, entered the room. "We do not need to send human soldiers everywhere. We need to teach other species the psychological framework. Fear management is a learned skill. Once they understand the principles, they can train their own people." Thane joined them at the tactical display. Since the successful operation, he had worked closely with the humans, learning their methods. "My people have tried psychological training before. The Vrexians' fear is too powerful. It overwhelms rational thought. Because you are trying to suppress the fear," Dr. Chen explained. "That is like trying to stop a river by standing in its path. You cannot win. Instead, you must redirect it. Fear creates physical and mental reactions, adrenaline, heightened awareness, rapid decision-making. Those reactions evolve to help you survive. The Vrexians have taught you to see fear as defeat. We need to teach you to see it as fuel." A young Velcrin officer named Saris spoke up. "But my species feels emotions more intensely than others. Vrexian fear is agony for us. We cannot simply redirect such pain." Dr. Chen turned to her. "Saris, you are telepathic, correct? You sense the emotions of those around you?" "Yes, it is both gift and curse. Then you already have the most important skill. You can feel emotions without being controlled by them. When you sense another person's anger, you do not become angry yourself. When you feel someone's joy, you remain yourself while understanding their experience. You have been doing this your entire life. Vrexian fear is just another emotion to sense and understand rather than embody." Saris looked startled. "I never thought of it that way. We always treated Vrexian broadcasts as attacks to endure, not information to process." Over the following weeks, humans worked with alien psychologists to develop training programs specific to each species. The Korvathi, with their warrior culture, learned to channel fear into focused aggression. The Velcrin practiced emotional differentiation techniques. The Zintari, a species of hive-minded insectoids, discovered that distributing fear across their collective consciousness reduced its impact on individuals. Lieutenant Marcus Reed, a human special forces trainer, worked with a group of resistance fighters on a liberated mining world. The volunteers came from 6 different species, all determined to overcome their psychological conditioning. "Fear serves a purpose," Reed explained to the assembled group. It warns you of danger. It prepares your body for action. The problem is not fear itself, but inappropriate responses to fear. When the Vrexians broadcast, they are not creating new fear. They are amplifying fear that already exists in your mind, taking your natural survival instinct and turning it into a weapon against you. A Korvathi soldier named Drex raised his hand. How do we stop them from amplifying our fear? You do not stop them. You acknowledge what is happening and refuse to let it control your actions. Watch. Reed activated a recording of Vrexian fear broadcasts. Immediately, every alien in the room tensed. Several began to shake. But Reed stood calmly, though sweat appeared on his forehead. I'm afraid right now, he said clearly. My heart is racing. My hands want to shake. Every instinct tells me to run. Those are normal biological responses, but I am still standing here. I am still talking. I am still in control of my actions because I have accepted that fear is something I feel, not something I am. He turned off the broadcast. The alien slowly relaxed, looking at him with new understanding. Practice this, Reed continued. Expose yourself to controlled amounts of fear. Learn that you can function while afraid. Build your tolerance gradually. The Vrexians have made you believe that fear means defeat. Prove to yourself that this is a lie. The training was grueling. Resistance fighters practiced combat drills while experiencing simulated Vrexian fear broadcasts. They learned breathing techniques, focus exercises, and mental anchoring strategies. Many failed repeatedly before succeeding, but slowly progress appeared. Meanwhile, Captain Torres and Commander Thane planned larger operations. Intelligence reports showed that the Vrexians had noticed the resistance was changing. Their psychological attacks were becoming less effective in certain sectors. The Empire was confused, uncertain how to respond to an enemy that no longer broke under fear. They are adapting, Thane said, studying the reports, increasing broadcast intensity, trying new fear patterns. They know something has changed, Torres nodded. Good, confusion is our ally right now. The Vrexians have relied on fear for so long that they have no backup strategy. They are trying to solve a psychological problem with more psychology, but the issue is not in our minds anymore. It is in our training. Commander Williams entered the command center carrying new intelligence data. We have identified a priority target, the Vrexian Fear Fortress on Kelmar Prime. It is the central broadcasting station for this entire sector. They coordinate psychological attacks from there, managing fear levels across dozens of systems. Thane felt his heart accelerate. That fortress has stood for 80 years. It is the symbol of Vrexian power in this region. Any attack would be suicide. Any conventional attack would be, Torres agreed. But we are not conventional. I propose we infiltrate the fortress using a strategy the Vrexians will never expect. We make them afraid. The plan was audacious. A small team consisting of humans and trained resistance fighters would infiltrate the Fear Fortress posing as Vrexian collaborators. Once inside, they would sabotage the broadcasting systems and capture Vrexian personnel for intelligence. The key was psychological reversal, making the hunters become the hunted. Lieutenant Sarah Kim led the infiltration team. She was a psychological warfare specialist who had studied Vrexian culture extensively. The Vrexians have never experienced real fear, she explained during the mission briefing. They inflict it but do not feel it themselves. That is their weakness. They have no coping mechanisms, no training to handle terror when it is directed at them. The team consisted of 8 humans and 12 aliens, all veterans of the new training protocols. They approached Kelmar Prime in a captured Vrexian transport, broadcasting the correct identification codes. The Fear Fortress loomed ahead, a massive structure built to amplify and direct psychological attacks. As they docked, Kim reminded her team, "Remember, we are not here to fight through fear. We are here to create it. The Vrexians think they are the only ones who understand terror. Let us show them they are wrong." The infiltration went smoothly at first. The team moved through the fortress wearing Vrexian military uniforms taken from captured soldiers. The real Vrexians barely glanced at them. Why would they? No one had dared attack this fortress in decades. They reached the central broadcasting chamber, where Vrexian operators managed the fear networks. Kim signaled her team, and they moved with practiced precision. Within seconds, they had control of the chamber, Vrexian personnel secured before they could raise an alarm. Phase 2, Kim ordered. The humans began reprogramming the broadcasting systems. Instead of transmitting fear to the surrounding systems, they redirected it inward. The Fear Fortress began broadcasting terror at itself. Vrexians throughout the facility suddenly experienced something they had never felt before: raw, overwhelming fear. They had spent centuries perfecting psychological torture but had no defenses against it. They screamed, fled, collapsed. The mighty fortress of fear became a tower of panic. Thane, monitoring from orbit, watched in amazement as thermal scans showed Vrexians abandoning their posts, running in chaos. It is working. They cannot function under their own weapon. Down in the fortress, Kim's team moved through corridors filled with terrified Vrexians. They encountered no resistance. The enemy was too busy experiencing the fear they had inflicted on billions. But Kim knew they had limited time. Grab whatever intelligence data you can carry. Download everything from the central systems. We need to understand their command structure. A Korvathi soldier named Kren worked at a terminal downloading files. I have something. Communication logs between this fortress and the Vrexian High Command. They are worried. Multiple sectors reporting reduced psychological effectiveness. The Empire is debating whether to increase fear broadcasts or investigate what has changed. They still do not understand, said Saris, the Velcrin telepath. They think this is a technical problem that can be solved with more power. They cannot conceive that species might simply learn to function while afraid. An explosion rocked the fortress. Emergency systems activated, trying to counteract the redirected fear broadcasts. The Vrexians were regaining some control. Time to leave, Kim ordered. The team fought their way to the docking bay. Now they faced Vrexians who had overcome their initial panic, though they were still clearly shaken. The battle was brief but intense. Resistance fighters who had once frozen at the sight of Vrexians now engaged them directly, using the fear they felt as motivation rather than paralysis. They escaped just as Vrexian reinforcements arrived. The Fear Fortress was damaged but not destroyed. However, the psychological impact was devastating. The Vrexians had experienced their own weapon turned against them, and word spread quickly through their military. Back at the Resistance base, Kim debriefed with Torres and Thane. The captured intelligence is valuable, but the real victory is psychological. We have shown the Vrexians they can be hurt. They are not invincible. Torres studied the downloaded files. These communication logs confirm what we suspected. The Vrexian Empire is built entirely on fear. They have minimal conventional military forces. Their economy depends on tribute from terrified worlds. If species stop being afraid, the entire empire collapses. Dr. Chen had been analyzing Vrexian physiology from captured prisoners. I have discovered something interesting about Vrexian biology. They have extremely limited fear responses compared to other species. It appears to be a genetic adaptation. They cannot experience terror the way we do, which is why they weaponized it. It is alien to them, a curiosity they studied and exploited. But that means they have no natural immunity, Thane realized. When we turned their broadcasts against them, they had no psychological framework to cope. They experienced something completely outside their evolution. Exactly, Dr. Chen confirmed. Humans evolved with fear as a constant companion. We developed countless strategies to manage it. The Vrexians never needed those strategies. They are psychologically fragile in ways they never realized. Over the following months, the Resistance launched coordinated operations across multiple sectors. Each mission followed the same pattern: infiltrate, sabotage fear broadcasting systems, capture intelligence, and escape. The Vrexians tried to adapt, increasing security and developing new fear patterns, but they were fighting a losing battle. Species across the galaxy were learning human psychological techniques. Resistance cells practiced exposure training, building tolerance to Vrexian broadcasts. Planets that had been paralyzed by fear for generations began to resist. The Empire's psychological grip weakened. Commander Williams coordinated strategy with resistance leaders from across the galaxy. We are winning the psychological war, but we cannot forget that the Vrexians still have military assets. They are deploying more conventional forces now, trying to hold territory through occupation rather than fear. Then we must continue to adapt, said General Corvin, who had become one of humanity's strongest advocates. The Vrexians taught us that psychological warfare can be more effective than guns. Now we teach them that determination can overcome any weapon. A major offensive was planned. The target was the Vrexian stronghold at Arcturus 7, a fortress world that coordinated fear broadcasts for an entire galactic sector. The operation would require thousands of fighters from dozens of species all working together. Captain Torres addressed the assembled forces before the battle. Representatives from hundreds of worlds listened, some in person, others via holographic link. 3 months ago, this alliance would have been impossible, Torres began. Each of your species believed you were uniquely vulnerable to Vrexian fear. You thought no one else could understand your terror? But we have learned that fear is universal. Every species experiences it, and every species can overcome it. He paused, looking across the crowd of alien faces. Humans are not special. We are not immune to fear. We are absolutely terrified right now. But we learned a long time ago that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite fear. You have all made that decision. You have all chosen to stand and fight rather than kneel and hope for mercy. That makes you the bravest beings in the galaxy. The battle for Arcturus VII was fierce. Vrexian forces, now including conventional military units, fought desperately to hold the fortress. They broadcast fear at maximum intensity, but the attacking forces had trained for exactly this scenario. They felt the terror, acknowledged it, and continued fighting. Lieutenant Reed led a strike team against the fortress's shield generators. Beside him fought Drex, the Korvathi warrior who had once frozen under Vrexian broadcasts. Now Drex moved with controlled fury, channeling his fear into precise aggression. "I am afraid," Drex said as they breached the generator room. "But I am also angry. The Vrexians made my people kneel for 60 years. That anger is stronger than any fear they can create. They destroyed the shields, allowing the main force to assault the fortress directly. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The resistance had learned to fight while afraid. The Vrexians had no answer for that. When Arcturus VII fell, it sent shockwaves through the Empire, a fortress that had stood for a century. Destroyed by species the Vrexians had considered broken. The psychological shift was profound. The hunters had become the hunted, and everyone knew it. In the aftermath, Torres met with the human command staff. "We have proven that the Vrexians can be beaten. But victory in battle is not enough. We need to ensure that what comes after is better than what came before." Commander Williams agreed. The galaxy has lived under fear for so long that many species do not remember any other way. We need to help them build something new, not just the absence of fear, but genuine cooperation and mutual defense. Dr. Chen added, "And we must remember that we are not conquerors. We came to this galaxy by accident, survivors of a dead world. We have no right to impose our will on others. We can offer guidance, share our experience, but the future belongs to all species together." Lieutenant Kim, who had led the Fear Fortress infiltration, spoke thoughtfully. "The Vrexians created an empire of fear because they could not understand it. They treated terror as a tool, not recognizing it as a fundamental part of consciousness. Perhaps that is the real lesson. We must understand what we fear, why we fear it, and how to act despite it. That understanding is what defeats tyranny." The resistance prepared for the next phase of their campaign. Intelligence suggested the Vrexian High Command was in disarray, debating whether to escalate their attacks or negotiate. Some Vrexian commanders had even begun to defect, seeing the writing on the wall. But Torres knew the hardest battle still lay ahead. Taking down the Vrexian Empire was one thing. Building something better afterward would be far more challenging. Fear had united the galaxy against a common enemy. What would hold the alliance together when that enemy was gone? As he pondered these questions, a message arrived from deep space. Another human colony ship had been detected, drifting near the galactic edge. The wayward star carrying 30,000 more humans in cryosleep. Should we wake them? Thane asked. Torres looked at the stars beyond the viewport. Yes. They deserve to know what happened to Earth, what the galaxy has become, and what role humanity has played in changing it. And maybe they will have fresh perspectives we need. We were military personnel and colonists. Who knows what skills and ideas they might bring? The decision was made. The wayward star would be recovered and its crew awakened. Humanity's numbers in this new galaxy were growing. And with them, the galaxy's hope grew as well. Comment for next part.